So, I think I need to talk about Apple Family Reunion for a second. I mean, it's not like I have any personal interest in the character of Applejack or anything. No, not at all. Seriously though, I think this will be the last time I'll have to open a video like this. Unless they for some reason bring back Nightmare Moon. Anyways, Apple Family Reunion. An Applejack episode. A character that I love to death and think is oh so full of potential, but so far has been left on the sideline for most of the show's 2 seasons. I talk about this in depth in my A4 reference My Little Critiques video, but the Cliff Notes version is that Applejack, despite being awesome, has already been completely explored as a character as she currently stands, as she has no established goals or aspirations she's working towards, and her one real weakness has already been talked about in her 2 best appearances in the series. I said that until the writers give her some more dimension, she'll always take the backseat in the show, as either the wise sage archetype, providing wisdom to the other more dynamic members of the cast, or, even worse, simply ignored altogether. So, here's AJ's first episode since that video. How does the episode fare? Does AJ finally get some new dimension to her, thus expanding her from a simple archetypal supporting character to a truly dynamic member of the cast? Or do the writers simply retread already familiar ground, leaving us again unsatisfied and AJ still underdeveloped? Let's take a look and find out.
Do you know you are my very best friends?
The story of Apple Family Reunion is simple and easy enough to guess based on the title. The Apple family is coming together to Sweet Apple Acres from all over Equestria once again to reconnect. We start off with Applejack offering to take over planning of the event from the usual master of ceremony, Granny Smith, as the stress seems to be getting to her. AJ pulls out all the stops she can think of to make it the biggest and most exciting reunion yet, but in attempting to give the Apples fun things to do, she neglects the reason they all gathered in the first place, namely to reconnect with each other. Applejack learns that time spent with family is less about the amazing things everyone does, but more about the memories created from the people everyone spends their time with. The overall plot of this episode was, well, familiar. Not so much in the realm of the show, but just in general. A character taking on a task they've never accomplished before only to find out it's not as easy as they would have expected has been done to death, especially in children's animation. While it may not be exactly fair to comment as such, I couldn't help but feel like I've already seen this episode before, simply because the arc here has been done to death in countless other shows. I feel MLP works the best when they either take one of the main 6 and really take 22 minutes to explore and grow them as a character, or when they take a slice of life concept and inject it with some sort of fantasy twist that could only make sense in a world like Equestria. It helps keep an otherwise familiar concept feel fresh. Apple Family Reunion fails to really do either one. The entire concept of this episode could easily be transplanted into any other slice of life show or primetime sitcom and not feel out of place. And the fact of the matter is that, once again, Applejack really doesn't grow all that much. But I digress. Let's back up a bit and talk about AJ's appearance in this episode. I've harped on for a while now that I feel that Applejack needs some sort of new characterization added to her repertoire for her to start really living up to her potential. Apple Family Reunion kind of addresses this, but kind of doesn't. Allow me to explain. First of all, the lesson. While it was certainly a good one, it felt completely bizarre to see Applejack, of all characters, learn this lesson. Who is constantly the voice of wisdom to all the other members of the cast? Who was the one who taught Rarity the meaning of being a good sister? Who's the most family-oriented character in the entire show? Applejack. How could she not know this, being as family-focused and just generally as wise as she's been shown to be? This feels like a concept far more fitting of Apple Bloom to have learned, with Applejack expositing the lesson, not learning it. But what about expanding AJ as a character? How does the episode fare in that regard? At first I wasn't all that enthused. I figured that AJ was once again showcasing her stubbornness by not letting any pony else do what they wanted to do, thinking she had the best ideas on how everyone should be spending their time. And while this is certainly the case, this aspect of control, upon further reflection, isn't really a part of her we've seen before. While it can be argued that, like my initial impression, this is just her desire to be independent showing through, similar to her resistance in accepting help in Applebuck season, or admitting she was wrong and look before you sleep, it can also be interpreted as an almost parental characteristic, especially when she was interacting with Babs and Applebloom. A lot of people have observed that AJ must not only be a sister, but also a sort of motherly figure to Applebloom in light of their parents being missing. And while I was always of the opinion that it was probably Granny Smith who filled in that mom role, This episode kind of showed AJ in that light, and gave the concept some credence. I couldn't help seeing AJ chastise Babs and Applebloom and be reminded of an overzealous mother, trying to get her children to do what she wanted them to do and what she thought was best, even if the kids disagreed. The problem with me, and anyone else, interpreting the events of the episode this way, is just that. It's an interpretation, not an actual confirmed characteristic of Applejack. We can infer it's there all we want, but until we get some confirmation on screen, it's still all headcanon. And until this kind of relationship is directly addressed, all this episode really did show was her stubbornness. Again. And that brings me back pretty much full circle. Applejack is a character with tons of potential, but as she currently stands, based on what we're shown, and not what we think, she's a completely explored character. You're teasing us with AJ's family, DHX. Show us some more of this. Really get into the relationship between Big Mac, Applebloom, and AJ. How does their dynamic really tick? What is AJ's relationship with her brother? What are the roles in their family in light of their parents not being around? I know directly addressing the parents being gone is too dark for the show, but they're brother and sister for Celestia's sake. And the only time they really had a conversation was at the beginning of Applebuck season. The 4th episode! We know virtually nothing about Big Macintosh. What better way to delve into him as a character than by simultaneously exploring and expanding your regular cast member most desperately in need of some dimension? And if that aspect is just too out of scope for the target demographic, then for the love of Luna, give the poor girl something to do outside the farm! You had the right idea with Last Roundup, but that aspiration was just a one-off and didn't stick like Rainbow Dash's Wonderbolt's dream or Rarity's fashionista aspirations. Give AJ something to work for, something that isn't dependent on the rest of the apples. She obviously has an independent mindset. Give her a self-standing goal that can grow herself as a character, independent of the rest of her family. Please! So, Apple Family Reunion. Overall, I'd rate this episode a 6.5 out of 10. Not even a song for AJ and the return of Babseeds could really help shake the fact that the story just felt too familiar. And that, once again, AJ missed a great opportunity to really become a character all of her own.
My little pony. My little pony.
Enough.
Oh, thank you, Applejack. I still can't believe it's been almost 100 moons since our last family reunion.
Wait. 100 moons? 100 moons.
Would you care to sample some?
Oh, as long as it doesn't take too long.
Soup's on, every pony! Now, why don't I introduce y'all to the Apple family?
Apple what season?
Yeah. It's what the Apple family calls harvesting time. We gather all the apples from the trees so we can sell them.
But why are you doing it all alone?
'Cause Big Macintosh hurt himself.
What about all those relatives I met when I first came to Ponyville? Can't they help?
They were just here for the Apple family reunion. They actually live all over Equestria and are busy harvesting their own orchard.
So you're telling me that everything that's happened since the first episode has only been in the span of 100 days? Almost 25% of a year? What?